Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Crowdfunding Playbook for Maximum Giving webinar. We're pleased to have all of you. Thanks for joining us today, taking time out of your busy day. We have a full, informative, and engaging webinar planned for each of you. So thanks for joining. A couple of quick notes to everyone that's joined. Number one, if you have any issues with audio or can't hear us at any time, feel free to switch to dial in by phone. You can do so by choosing the More button on the upper right of your screen and then switch to phone. Sometimes voice over IP makes it a little bit choppy in the audio, so definitely feel free to dial in by phone. We are also recording this webinar, and we will send all of you a link to view, listen, and share the recording, as well as download the presentation for today's webinar. So moving along quickly, we've got some great speakers for you today. We have Julia Campbell, who's the social media strategist and nonprofit techie at JCSM. We have Shelley Wenk, who's the senior digital communications specialist at International Medical Corps. Tim Gay, founder and president of Youth Thrive Corporation, and our very own Jeremy Koenig, who's the creative director at Mobile Cause, and the crowdfunding for nonprofits architect. So we've got some great stuff prepared for you. Our agenda, we're going to talk about some getting started with crowdfunding and 5 tips from a pro. We'll be discussing crowdfunding for nonprofits, the definitions and goals, some pre-launch planning, maximizing volunteer participation, making it easy for volunteers to sign up, post-launch planning, a terrific nonprofit startup success story, and we'll give you a little tour of Mobile Cause and answer some questions about how it works specifically. And we're going to leave room for about 10 minutes of questions at the end of the webinar. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into your chat window on the left of your screen. We will endeavor to answer as many of the questions as we can at the end of the 10 minutes or at the end of the webinar during those last 10 minutes. So definitely please feel free to make sure you get your questions in. We'll get as many of them answered as we can. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Julia Campbell is the founder and principal and digital marketing strategist at J. Campbell Social Marketing. Having been a one-woman development and marketing shop, Julia has the experience needed to help nonprofits of all sizes find success using digital communications and online fundraising tools. A returned Peace Corps volunteer, a mother of 2, and a lover of activism and social causes, Julia helps nonprofits through her consulting services, training sessions, and custom webinars. Her blog was named one of the top 150 nonprofit blogs in the world, and she is included in the top 40 digital strategists in marketing for 2014. Welcome, Julia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. So I think the first topic we wanted to get your insight on is getting started. How do you make an impact with your crowdfunding campaign?
Well, I think there's a misconception about crowdfunding in that a lot of nonprofits tend to see these businesses or individuals or other nonprofits that have had resounding success. Of course, they only really hear about the success stories. What they don't understand is the amount of preparation involved in a successful crowdfunding campaign. So if you are a nonprofit just starting out and you don't have any employees, you don't really have a mailing list, you don't have a Facebook fan page, you don't have any kind of online community to reach out to, crowdfunding may not be the best option for you. It's certainly a way to help build your audience and build your community, but you do need to have some things in place, in my experience, to make crowdfunding successful. So I think the first step is really preparation. Do you have your ducks in a row? Do you have the software where you're going to capture people's information? Do you have an online fundraising tool that you use? Do you have ways to reach your supporters, ways to reach new supporters? Are you active on social media? Do you have email marketing? Do you have a way to create a great video? And that's what I talk about, in this slide. There's so much planning involved that I really believe it should be maybe 3 months out, if not more, before the date where you're going to launch a campaign. So you want to create, obviously, the timeline. That is the actionable tasks that you're going to take and who is going to take them, who is responsible, and the deadline. So you don't just throw up a crowdfunding page or, decide that you're going to do a crowdfunding campaign. You really need to do some strategic planning in the beginning. You really need to know your audience. You need to know who you're targeting. You need to know what they like. Who else do they support? You really want to know what they're passionate about, what moves them to action. Why do they support your cause? You have to always be thinking about what's in it for people. So in a traditional crowdfunding campaign, like a Kickstarter or something like that, they always get, you get something, you get swag, or you get a t-shirt, or you get access to a celebrity or something like that. So with your crowdfunding campaign, you have to be very creative in what you give these people. So you have to make it all about the impact and the feel good, the feel good aspect of it. What are they going to get from this? They're going to get the knowledge that they've helped save lives, or they've helped save animals, or the environment, or whatever the cause is. And then also they can help by sharing it to their networks, which makes them feel great and makes them look really, really good. So you have to think about some of these things when you're crafting your crowdfunding campaign. Also, your crowdfunding campaign has to be very specific. Once again, this is just from my experience. You can't ask for general operating funds. No one knows what general operating funds are unless you are a development director or a foundation program officer. So if you ask someone just to give you money in a crowdfunding campaign, it's not going to be nearly as compelling or as successful as if you say, we need $10,000 to build a playground in the next 3 months because school is starting. We need this money to provide this many lunches to this many kids because they don't get free lunch in the summer because school is out, that kind of thing. So that's where a lot of nonprofits get tripped up, is because they really want to make it more general. They don't want to be very, very specific. That's definitely possible, and there are success stories, but in my experience, the more specific the ask, the better. You can't do it alone. You must form a committee. This can be all volunteers. It can be 2 people. It can be 3 people. One person cannot possibly do a crowdfunding campaign by themselves unless you are Taylor Swift, or you have Justin Bieber, or you have 50 million Twitter followers. You cannot possibly get the support and the excitement and reach the number of people required to be successful. That's why I always say to figure out how to recruit online ambassadors. These are the people, also called Slacktivists, although I really hate that term, but it's a really popular term. People that, while they might not donate money right now, I mean, they might, but they might want to donate their time. So, for example, I am a social media ambassador for the Massachusetts Conference for Women, and they send me emails every week with specific tweets, specific graphics, Facebook posts, the webinar that they want to promote, bios of the speakers. They have an entire toolkit on their website with everything that I need to do my job. I don't get paid to do this, but I do get either a reduced rate to the conference or a free ticket to the conference, which is a huge, huge, huge incentive. So how can you create something like that to make it incredibly easy for your online ambassadors to share your crowdfunding campaign? You don't want to send an email out and say, everybody help us raise money, and send them the link. You want to actually write the tweet for them, actually create the infographic, send them a photo that they can use, send them the wording, send them all the links that they need, all the logos, anything like that. People are incredibly, incredibly busy, and I know that you know this, but the more you can give them and the more specific the ask, the better. So if you send an email on a Monday and say, we are $5,000 to our goal, can everyone just do a last push on Twitter, or can everyone just do a last push on Instagram? That is so much more effective than saying, come on guys, let's get to our goal. Keep telling your networks. If you send out specific tasks that people can do every week, I also believe you really need to be updating people on your progress. So that's your action committee, whoever obviously is involved in performing the tasks required to get to your goal, your online ambassadors, your email list, your Facebook fans, your Twitter followers. Every way you can get the word out, you want to get the word out about your successes. Oh my God, we got our first $100 donation, or oh, we're halfway to our goal, or oh my God, we are 75% towards our goal. We just need this much more. Can everyone ask everyone for $5? The people that have donated and the people that are actively involved in the crowdfunding should get an update probably every single day. I'm talking about when you do a crowdfunding campaign, you're only running it for maybe 2 weeks. It's got to be urgent. It has to be timely. It's not just putting a donate now button on your website. It's a campaign that you're running with a start and a middle and an end. You want to be updating people on your progress. You want to be not just asking, but showing the impact. So, wow, we've already purchased the slide. We've already purchased the mulch for the playground. Here are like the 10 kids lining up and they're so excited and they're watching the construction. Things like that. You don't necessarily have to have construction in place, but you could show the food bank and show the empty pantries, or show the backpacks that you need to fill with school supplies, or show something that is very compelling visually to help communicate the impact that the donors are going to have. You want to really be writing a story from start to finish and showing how the donor is a part of writing a happy ending to that story.
Fantastic.
Makes sense?
Well, and everyone, this is some great insight from Julia, and we've got a few questions that have come in. Definitely continue to send us your questions, and we will get to answers to some of those specific ones at the end of the webinar. Again, last final 10 minutes. So thank you so much, Julia, for that piece of it. So we'll hear more from Julia in a little bit and during Q&A. So now I'm going to move quickly to introduce Jeremy Koenig, who's the creative director and one of the crowdfunding architects of the Mobile Cause platform. Jeremy has a more than 12-year mix of corporate agency and nonprofit organizational marketing management experience and a wealth of knowledge on crowdfunding. Jeremy?
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to start off my time by just actually defining what crowdfunding for nonprofits is. Crowdfunding is the practice of volunteer fundraisers raising small donations from a large number of people, typically via mobile, social, and online channels to fund a cause. To reinforce Julia's point, it's not just a magic way of gaining a whole bunch of money. It's actually about tapping into the collective network of your network. 3 goals that I want to set the stage with for what crowdfunding actually is trying to accomplish is, number 1, the goal of crowdfunding is to tap into the networks as many of your supporters as possible. Your network's not big enough, but the network of your network is humongous, even if you only have a few volunteers and supporters. Number 2, the more personal you make your call to action, the more people you'll inspire to become fundraisers and give. What I mean is, again, to reinforce Julia's point, if you're trying to send and scholarship 20 kids to camp in 2 weeks so that they can have a new fresh start in foster care, people are going to give to that because there's a sense of urgency and it's very personal. Also, when fundraisers, individuals who set up crowdfunding pages, when they make their call to actions personal, for example, and this is true for me, I grew up with 20 foster brothers and sisters. And it's so important that these types of kids feel like they're loved and have opportunities like this. Give a scholarship. If you can inspire your volunteers to use that kind of language, they will be incredibly successful at raising funds for you. And thirdly, the better you build your brand, the easier you will make it for people to raise donations for you. And what I mean by brand is I actually recommend that nonprofits brand their campaign itself. So you're going to start to see some examples on the next few slides where the crowdfunding campaign itself has a unique and distinct name, story, colors, logo, video, and that is consistent through all of your channels that you use to launch your campaign and promote your campaign throughout. On this next slide, I just grabbed 3 examples quickly out of the Mobile Cause platform that I thought were good examples of different types of people that can fundraise through crowdfunding. Here you see an example from the Autism Spectrum 5K, Birmingham Southern Lacrosse, and Teen Lifeline. Again, this is an older lady, a young college lacrosse player, and a family. And each one of them are raising money for a cause that they are very passionate about. I have here as a note, the crowdfunding phenomenon is a phenomenon because of its viral nature. People tend to be very willing to give when they are personally asked by friends and family. That's the key. They are asking their network. You're not asking their network for them, but they're asking their network. In this next slide, I show 3 examples of very personal calls to action. We have one from Baylor University. We have one from Love LA, which is a youth church movement in Los Angeles. And then we have one from Wildlife SOS. Again, these are people who are passionate about causes going out and making a difference and raising donations from their friends and family in a personal way that matters to them. Lastly, I've just pulled up 3 examples of very good branding. The first one is this Restore Baltimore campaign. That's actually the most successful mobile cause crowdfunding campaign to date, and this is just an example of a girl who decided to set a goal of $2,500. Here you see the Acts 1-8, the Wild Wager campaign. Very cool. And then this third one is from Southland Christian School called Feed the Need, which is where kids actually raise money to send food and package up food to kids who are in need. It's very, very cool. So again, making your calls to action is very personal. And tapping into that network of supporters and then having a great branding experience. Those, in my mind, when I look at all the successful mobile cause campaigns so far, that is what each one of them truly has in common.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeremy. And Jeremy will be back with us to share some more details about exactly how Mobile Cause works later in the webinar. And of course, be available for Q&A. But I think those are some terrific examples. And I think just to underline what he said, he has visibility across hundreds of crowdfunding campaigns that have been utilized on the Mobile Cause platform. And these are just some examples that we really want to share with you so you all can learn from everybody else's success. And that's really what we're here to try and do, is so you all can learn exactly what others have done and how it's worked. So now I'd like to introduce Shelley Wank, who is the Senior Digital Communications Specialist at International Medical Corp. International Medical Corp is a global first responder providing healthcare relief, training, and development in communities impacted by disaster, conflict, and disease, most recently as the primary implementation partner for the World Health Organization in the fight against Ebola. For the past 10 years, she's worked with nonprofits, helping them put digital technology to practical use and build their digital fundraising and communications capacity. So welcome, Shelley. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be here. All right, so you want to set yourself up for success by doing a lot of planning up front. So first of all, you really want to make sure that you let people know what you're doing. Through your regular channels, you can do a press release, and a tool that I like for that is called the Social Press Kit. It's just a great online place where you can post all of your content. You can, as Julie was saying, you want to pre-write content for people, so you can put tweets up there, you can put images up there, you can put your press release up there, you can put your contacts up there. It's just a really great tool, and I put it in the chat window there for, kind of announcing to the world that you're doing a campaign. And again, sort of stressing what Julia said, you want to be very, very specific. You want to have a specific goal. You want to have a specific timeline, raising a certain amount of money by a very specific timeline for a very specific reason. Because there are so many competing priorities these days, especially online. People are being asked for this and that, and you really need to convey to people why they should stop what they're doing and give to your campaign right now. That's just as critical in crowdfunding as it is, in any other kind of campaign. And so you want to have that story developed so that you can pass that on to your fundraisers, and they can be conveying to their audiences why they have to stop what they're doing and give right now. You also want to reach out to influentials in the media, any local influentials you have. When you say celebrity, it doesn't have to be Taylor Swift. It can be somebody who's influential in the community that you're fundraising in. But influentials can help give you access to broad networks, with just a little bit of effort on their part. This is also a nice opportunity to reach out to corporate partners. You could even do a co-branded campaign, and it's a great way for them to a good visibility opportunity for them, showing their support of your cause and your work in their community. And because it is a crowdfunding campaign, they have that added benefit of really getting into other networks that they might not have access to otherwise as well. A good way to get people to participate is to have matching gifts, just like in other kinds of campaigns. That is a good way to incentivize people. It's one of those things that answers the question, why should I do this right now? When you are recruiting fundraisers, you want to make sure you're using all your channels and really asking people to participate. There's a passive ask, and then there is a direct ask. And if you just put something up and say, hey everybody, we have this now, you're going to get a pretty passive response. But if you get out there and go use your email list, go out on social media, and with your really, really core supporters, send them a text message and let them know that you're doing this and why they're an important part of the campaign. That's what's going to incentivize them to participate. Another good thing to do, if it's appropriate, is to jumpstart the campaign with a live event. Some of the most successful campaigns I've seen have involved doing a live event to have everybody set up their page together, get their questions answered, get excited, find out about any toolkits that you've set up for them, talk about goals and things like that, and how to fundraise. That's an important thing to remember when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, is that lots of these supporters are not professional fundraisers, and they don't know how to fundraise effectively, and that's where you can give them a lot of support. And then along with support in terms of fundraising tips, you want to make sure that you are, throughout the campaign, encouraging people, updating them, thanking them. And again, you want to use different channels for that, calling them out on social media, sending out an email, letting people know where things stand and how well they're doing. You can even do a phone call at some point during the campaign, just to touch base with everybody. If people have questions, answer questions and things like that. But the main thing is you want to be communicating throughout the campaign with people, thanking them, encouraging them, and supporting them. And you'll be the most successful if you put in that kind of support throughout the campaign. And then finally, it is primarily an online effort, but you will probably, in a lot of cases, we see people receive offline donations as well. Somebody says, oh, here, let me just cut you a check. And so you do want to work in a plan for reflecting the whole total of your whole campaign so that everybody who participates and gives feels acknowledged.
And, this is terrific, I think, just to, reiterate that there's a lot of commonalities and common themes that we're talking about today, right? And so it's a terrific checklist. And so now this is how easy you can make it for volunteers to set up their own page.
Yes, yeah. You want to make it easy for everybody to participate, and that starts with the fundraisers. One of the nice things about the mobile cause process is that it's just very quick. You can invite people across all the different channels, email, text, and social media. And then people can, just click on a link and within a few minutes have their own page set up. And that's actually the next slide, Chris. People can add a picture. They can put in, a little bit of customized copy, but it's a very low barrier in terms of setup for the fundraiser. There's not a lot to manage. There's not a lot to figure out or set up. It's easy, and the easier you can make it for the fundraisers and donors alike, the better.
And so now, how about post-campaign, right? What do you do then?
Well, you want to plan, do pre-planning for the post-campaign follow-up. So, one of the things that can help make you most successful is if you incentivize your fundraisers. People are definitely incentivized by being, just by being motivated by your cause. But it's always fun to have, a little bit of friendly competition or, some kind of reward as an acknowledgement for the very top fundraisers. So that's one thing you can do if it's appropriate. You also want to plan to cultivate and steward those new donors that you get along the way. A significant number of people who come in through crowdfunding will probably be new to your organization, and so you want to have a plan in place for how to talk to those people, how to introduce them, more deeply to your organization, and then to begin to kind of walk them up that ladder of engagement, getting them to make a second gift, offering them opportunities to get involved in your organization in other ways, and then eventually, hopefully, becoming sustaining donors. So you want to have thought that through, before you launch your campaign, so that you're ready to start working with those new donors as soon as possible. At the end of the campaign, it's of course, you'll be thanking people throughout, but you also want to make sure you do a big thank you and acknowledgement to both volunteers and donors at the end of the campaign. And video is just a great way to do that. If you have a short video, you can send it out through all different channels. And it can be from beneficiaries, it can be from people who are leaders in your organization. It just feels very personal to get a video and have somebody talking right to you and thanking you for the difference that you've made. So it's a great way to thank people at the end of the campaign. And also, you can use social media, again, throughout the campaign, but also at the end to be thanking and acknowledging people and engaging them. And it's just a good way to sort of, make your engagement more personal if you are responding directly to people in social media, throughout the campaign, and then at the end acknowledging them so that, their network of supporters on social media see what they've been doing, see that they've been working to benefit your cause, and they get that kind of social acknowledgement as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Shelley. And again, everyone, as a reminder, we are having 10 minutes at the end of the webinar here for questions. And I'd also recommend that we're going to be sending out the link to view this recording along with the presentation. So you can turn these slides, Shelley's slides, into checklists, really, for both pre-campaign planning and post-campaign planning, so that you ensure that you have a plan to hit each of those points that she's made. And if you have, again, specific questions on how to do so, we'll definitely want to address as many of them as possible. So now we're going to move on to our next guest. And we are happy to have Tim Gay with us. Thanks for joining, Tim. Tim is the founder and president of You Thrive. Tim recently left a successful career as a business executive in order to pursue his desire to become a social entrepreneur, focused on helping foster youth make a successful transition out of care and into adulthood. His 20-plus years of business experience includes leadership positions in banking, business development, strategic planning, and customer experience. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I think for everyone that's asked some questions, and I know, we always have a lot of attendees of all different sizes and organizations, and probably many of you may be wondering, well, how am I going to do all of this? And I'm one person. And I think Tim is a great example for that. Also being, a brand new organization, only 35 days old. He started, with essentially 0 followers, and now they've got more than 500 on Facebook. They've raised 29,000 plus with crowdfunding from 14 fundraisers and 192 donors. And so Tim has learned a lot in a short amount of time, and I wanted to get some insight from Tim. And, I guess based on where you are, Tim, and, maybe to take from what we've heard so far, what are your sort of top tips that you've kind of gotten? Where would you start? What do you recommend to everyone based on your experience of where to start?
Yeah, and honestly, I could probably be a better case example of the things not to do than the things to do, being a new startup nonprofit. As I was listening to Julie and Shelley share, there were only a couple of things that we actually did well, and a lot of things that if we had to do it over again would change. But one thing that we did do well is we took what we were raising the funds for foster youth, and we basically turned the amount of money that we were trying to raise into a sponsorship. And so we quantified how much it would cost for each youth to participate in our program. And we were trying to raise money for a pilot program of 25 youth. And so our goal was basically to raise enough money for 25 of these youth in our pilot program. And that resonated well with the volunteers as well as the donors. In fact, most of our volunteer fundraisers, that's the goal they set, was $1,350 per youth. And so that would be the goal. They wanted to raise enough money to be able to sponsor one youth. One thing that I think that would have done differently, which is kind of the second point, is I'm not sure we had much of a choice because we had a sense of urgency in when we needed to launch this pilot program and in partnership with the local agency. But we were brand new. Our Facebook page and our website were 4 to 5 days old when we launched our campaign. So in that first 5 days, we were able to get about 100 page likes on Facebook, and that's what we started with. So, I would not recommend that as a normal course for doing crowdfunding. If I had to do it over again and I had more time, I would have spent more time building the brand, building brand awareness, building followers on Facebook and other places like that in social media that would allow us to have a foundation for when we kicked off the campaign. What we wound up doing was building them in a parallel path, which made it very challenging. We now are nearing 600 followers on our Facebook, but we started the campaign with slightly under 100. A related thing that I think I learned is we did a 2.5-week campaign. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have done no more than 7 to 10 days, and I would have spent that first week trying to build our presence in social media. One thing that we did do well that worked well for us is I had spent a fairly significant amount of time, probably a month to maybe 4 to 6 weeks, having individual meetings with potential donors to kind of tell them about eThrive, tell them about the program that we're launching, tell them about the needs and the opportunities, and asking them to get involved either on a volunteer basis or by donating. And so I had a small group of committed donors before I launched the campaign, of which I asked all of them to wait on making their donation until we launched the campaign. And so my largest committed donor, we utilized a matching offer twice on two of the Mondays. We called it Matching Monday, and we offered to match all donations that day, dollar for dollar, and that worked really well. The other thing I did with those committed donors is I would strategically ask them to go out and make a donation whenever I sensed that there was a lull in the campaign and we needed to maintain some momentum. And a handful of them actually just handed me checks and said, here, you just input them when you need them. And so I would go in and input those as offline donations at a very strategic point in the campaign to maintain that momentum. And then the other thing that I think worked well for us, and again, we started the campaign, we only had like 7 or 8 fundraisers. And one area that I was not successful was in attracting additional fundraisers I didn't get any organic growth in fundraisers. We started with about 7 or 8. We ended with about 13 or 14, of which only about 10 or 11 were really active. They were all handpicked and recruited by me personally. But one thing that did work well is I sent out a daily email every morning that kind of outlined the results from the day before and what the focus or the game plan would be for that day. And I would then sometimes give them a preview for what we would be doing in the next 2 or 3 days. But it was a pretty detailed email, and my fundraisers were great, and they knew, to go and check the email. And it was just basically the game plan for how we were going to do the fundraising. And it was, again, maybe not ideal or the recommended approach, but I spent my 2.5 weeks just about 80 to 90% of my time was spent coaching, encouraging, communicating, clarifying, and working with these 8 or 10 people to help them with their fundraising efforts.
Fantastic, Tim. And I think this is a great example for everyone that really puts, I think, in clear perspective some of the examples that Julia and Shelley had recommended, some of the best practices. And, of course, you did, like as you said, learn a lot. The one thing I think maybe that couldn't be under discussed is really how you prepared your story, and you kind of talked about it in the beginning, like you made it very, very clear what the organization was doing, what's the benefit, right? Maybe could you tell us a little bit about, how you sort of communicated that, and what the organization's mission was, and how you kind of communicated that to potential donors?
Yeah, I mean, the highest level you guys heard, it's supporting foster youth as they transition into adulthood, as they age out, as it's called, and they transition into adulthood. But specifically, the way we communicated that was through our messaging, and you can't see it on the page on the left, but it talked about it being $1,350 is what the cost would be to be able to sponsor or support one foster youth in our pilot program. And then the fundraisers used that as their goal. And then on Facebook and on our website, I had basic, very simple charts and graphs that took the amount of money we were trying to raise. And it was very specific, $33,750, which is 25 times 1350. And I would have a bar graph of where we were relative to our goal, and I also had that translated into the number of youth. So I would have, we currently have enough money for 8 youth or 12 youth or 18 youth, and our goal is 25. And I communicated that on Facebook, and I communicate that on the web, on our website, and my fundraisers communicated that on a regular basis in their messaging out to their contacts and their friends as they were trying to raise money.
That's fantastic, and I think everyone you did all of this on your own. This is you on your own doing all of this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was the naive novice that, basically we needed to raise a certain amount of money to launch this pilot campaign. I knew I couldn't do it through one-on-one meetings, and so it was a high-risk, high-reward thing for us to try. we did some things well, and we made some mistakes. And if I had to do it over again, there'd be a lot of things I'd do differently. But we just ended our campaign at midnight last night. So if I sound a little tired, it's because we had a long weekend. But we did exceed our goal by $3,000. But it was due to a big weekend and a big push on the last day that we were able to get to our goal.
Well, congratulations on that. That is fantastic. And thanks so much for sharing. And despite being up late last night, we're really grateful that you could attend and share this experience with everybody. And so now we're going to move on quickly, and we'll get back to Tim shortly, as well as the other speakers. So again, we'll start with a Q&A in about 6 minutes or so here. So do please, continue. I've captured a lot of questions. Continue to submit your questions there for Tim, Julia, Shelley, and Jeremy. We're grateful to have all of this knowledge. And again, everyone, we're going to be sharing the recorded version of this webinar so you can review it, watch it, listen to it again, share it with your colleagues, as well as download the presentation so you can, create your own checklists, create your own plans so you can learn from everyone, what everyone else has experienced here. So now I'm going to turn it back to Jeremy to talk a little bit more specifically about MobileCause. Jeremy?
Thanks, Chris. First, I just wanted to say thank you to all the speakers. Julia, you are absolutely amazing. You are an expert. Shelley, you have so much experience. It is unbelievable. And Tim, keep doing what you're doing. You are an example to social and philanthropic people around the world who want to go out and do good. And so I'm specifically appreciative of what you're doing with kids. I was serious when I said I actually grew up with 20 unofficial foster brothers and sisters. So way to go. The things you're doing are making a difference. I just wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about why MobileCause. There are literally hundreds of crowdfunding services popping up all the time. And as Chris mentioned, I'm actually one of the original architects of the MobileCause crowdfunding platform. We started it back in 2012, specifically with the intention to do what is actually in the best interest of nonprofits. And so some of those details are here that we believe differentiate us from everybody else out there in the market. You've seen a bunch of great customer examples, and I just want to highlight some of the things that make us different and we believe superior and best for nonprofits. The first is nonprofits can literally set up crowdfunding campaigns in minutes. Tim probably set his up by himself in 30 minutes to an hour. It's very quick and very powerful. Unlike traditional crowdfunding for projects, when somebody makes a donation to your cause through any of your volunteers, as those donations are settled, they can appear immediately in your nonprofit bank account. Very amazing. As well as all your donor data and your volunteer data that you're capturing on all your forms, it appears in real time. We recognize here at MobileCause, specifically when it comes to fundraising, that capturing and cultivating donor data is actually more important than the money you raise in the long term. One way that MobileCause is designed to save you lots of administrative cost is you have the option of doing automatic tax receipts. So you can literally have an army of volunteers out there raising money, and each one of those people who gives gets an official tax receipt that they can use when they file their taxes. Some of the examples that you've seen previous volunteer sign-up forms, one of the unique things about MobileCause, you can actually embed it right on your website. So we have some really cool examples. I think Acts 1.8 actually has a live on their homepage right now where literally right there you can become a crowdfunder right on the homepage. Very sweet. Individuals can create pages in minutes from a smartphone, tablet, or PC. This is the big one. You can stand in a room full of 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people and give them instructions in which they can set up their own page just like you've seen in just a couple of minutes and a few taps on their smartphone. Very, very powerful and amazing. One thing that we haven't mentioned that makes MobileCause unique is that each volunteer fundraiser gets their own keyword and short link for in-person giving. So let me give you an example. If I were raising money for Tim, and I was with my my close friend and we were out having sushi, I could literally say to him, yeah, will you support me in this? Yeah, I really want to. Well, I could One, I could just send him the short link that he could click on his phone and put in his credit card information to make a gift, or I could have him say, yeah, go ahead and text Youth Thrive 2, and that might be my keyword, and then he would immediately get a reply back with the link. Very powerful. Lastly, one of the things that we do here at Mobile Cause that we think is just in the best interest of nonprofits is we have 0% transaction fees with all our plans, and so we don't charge any transaction fees. Most crowdfunding platforms are built on you getting a charge for all the money you raise. We don't charge a transaction fee, and we charge an industry-leading flat 2.5% credit card processing, including Amex for all gifts. So we're really excited about our product. My goal here is to have as many nonprofit organizations like Tim's use our service, our powerful solutions, to grow and strengthen the good that they're doing. I'll just end with a Mobile Cause definition. We are a cloud-based fundraising platform for a new generation of giving that is designed to help nonprofits acquire donors, fundraise at a lower cost, and make it easy to give. With that, I'll turn it back over to Chris for questions.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jeremy. Well, we got a lot of great questions, and we've got good 10 minutes here to get through as many of them as possible. So kind of without further ado, back to Julia. Thanks for answering all those great questions to everybody in chat, and thanks to everybody for submitting them. Just to make sure that everybody got the answers, here's a quick question. In terms of like updating communications, right? Like, we talked a little bit about doing it daily. There's a question: do you recommend doing it through every medium, every channel, every day, or through different media? What are your thoughts on communications frequency and channels?
I think that everyone is going to be incredibly shocked and dismayed by the tiny percentage of your fans and followers that actually see your updates. I know that I was in a webinar with Chris Brogan, who is a social media guru, and he has, at this point, probably 1 million Twitter followers, but he has 500,000 Twitter followers at that point. And he said that he posted 50 times that week, or 50 times in the last 2 weeks, about that webinar, and not a single person said anything. So nobody said, oh, you're posting too much about this webinar. So that led him to say, wow, people are really not seeing my stuff. So I think the more you can post, as long as it's relevant, as long as you're not just cutting and pasting and kind of being boring, if there's great updates, if you're sharing stories, if there's compelling language and it's brief and it's urgent, I say update your supporters every day. That's why I think a shorter campaign is better, so that people don't get burned out. If it's a month-long campaign, you're going to have to get very creative. I wouldn't send if it's giving, and if it's a giving day, if it's 24 hours, you're going to want to be posting and sending emails out pretty much maybe every couple of hours. If it's just a 24-hour giving day, you want to create the urgency, and you want to explain to people in the beginning, this is what's happening. Obviously they can opt out or unfollow you for the time being, or whatever they want to do. No one's going to do that. If you think about the people you follow on Facebook and the causes and pages you follow on Facebook, you really don't get inundated with stuff unless it's a news organization or a brand, and then that it's usually content that's not relevant to you. So the key is to just make the content very relevant and very interesting, and be funny, and use humor, and be entertaining, and focus on your donor. And that's really my advice. You have to figure out kind of the sweet spot for your particular donors. But I do think everyone would be really shocked to know that maybe like 1% of your fans or followers, maybe 5% if you're lucky, and if you're not paying for ads, are actually seeing your posts.
Right. Fantastic. And now here's a question for Shelley. Shelley, what do you recommend in terms of the number of sort of online, ambassadors or fundraisers? What's the recommended number to recruit? Any thoughts on that?
I would say as many as you can. I mean, when you're thinking about online ambassadors, you are trying to select people who have broad networks of their own. And so, the more of those, the better. But if you only have one, go with one.
Right. And how about in terms of like a financial goals? Like, what have you seen in terms of like, setting a financial? How do you figure that out? Not too much, not too little. How do you set a reasonable goal?
Well, you look at, how many people you think will be fundraising for you. Try to look at your supporter base and how many of those people do you really think that you can get on board. And, you can make a conservative estimate. And then, there are benchmarks, and Jeremy can share those about, how much the average fundraiser raises and that kind of thing. And you can use those to build out your goals so that they're based on something and they're not just pulled out of thin air. But I think I recommend if it's your first time out, set something that's modest and attainable so that you can celebrate a success and get some experience under your belt, and build out your crowdfunding strategy from there.
Right. And now here's a question for Tim. If someone's asking, what do you recommend, as a starting point for a small nonprofit with an underdeveloped development function and not much staff, right? I mean, again, I think you shared what you've learned. Like, so if you had to tell somebody like yourself what to do, where do you recommend that they start?
Yeah, I think it all is going to depend on your individual situation. To the extent you have a little more of a runway before you need the money, then I would recommend taking your time and planning and doing the things that Julia and Shelley kind of shared. Build your awareness, build your brand, build your following, and have a well-orchestrated plan. To the extent you don't have a runway, and we didn't, we have to launch our pilot program in a month, and we needed the funding for it. Then I would say focus on quality versus quantity. I was thankful that I had a good, strong core group of fundraisers. Even with 8 or 10 really solid fundraisers, if you really focus, you work well together, and you have a good message, then you can still be successful. Now, believe me, I didn't feel successful at many moments during the campaign, and there were a lot of things we tried that didn't work. But if you have to do it, focus on the quality and having some really good, strong fundraisers versus getting spread too thin.
Right. And now, how would you say you sort of like, and maybe it's sort of a two. Was your time allocated, say, over the last month, in a percent of doing this versus that? Could you tell everyone sort of how, give people a sense of the time involved in different activities as a percent?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. You wind up doing everything. So it varied day to day, but I spent a lot of my time trying to coach and assist and interact and communicate, and my fundraisers. I would say at least half of my time was spent doing that. The other half was crafting the message and thinking through what would the next focus be. What are we going to do next? So today we're focused on this Matching Monday. Well, what are we going to do middle of the week? What's the next thing we're going to focus on? And also updating Facebook and the website and, the communication part of it, which I was doing all of that myself too. So probably, another 20-30% of my time was on that. And then, for the last 2.5 weeks, it was really about the campaign. I might spend 10 or 20% time actually doing the things I need to do to get ready for this pilot that's about to launch. But for the last 2.5 weeks, it was really about my fundraisers and the messaging and the website and the Facebook and everything involved in the campaign.
Terrific. And I think that's very helpful to give everyone a sense for, really where the effort goes. And now here's some very practical questions. Did somebody want to add something?
I was just going to add real quickly. This point was made earlier, and I probably should have said it earlier too, but I think the length of your campaign really is a function of the intensity. Ours was very intense, and it was 2.5 weeks long. And about a little over a week into it, our fundraisers and our potential donors were experiencing fatigue. And so if you're going to do a longer campaign, then make sure that it's not as intense. If you want to hit something hard and do something intense, then I personally wouldn't do anything more than a week, 10-day campaign. And that was something that I definitely would have changed, because we were very intense for 2.5 straight weeks, and my fundraisers were worn out by the end. I was worn out. They were definitely worn out.
Right. And this goes back into what we talked about the other day in terms of also setting goals, right? I mean, so it seemed like what we talked about is setting a shorter duration and maybe even a lower goal, so people start to feel, super successful during that time, and then you could always do a secondary campaign. Obviously, you didn't have the luxury of doing that, but is that kind of how you would structure it next time?
Yeah, definitely. If you have a longer runway as a new nonprofit, set a smaller goal and do just what you said. I had to have the money raised so I could do the pilot program, so I had to roll the dice and go for a pretty significant goal for a brand new company. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to raise smaller amounts and do multiple campaigns, that would be the way I would approach it.
Fantastic. This is great insight, everyone. We've kind of reached the top of the hour. I did want to give Jeremy one last opportunity to give a couple of practical answers that have come up, or two questions. One is, there's some terms of the support you get from Mobile Cause in setup and success. So, Jeremy, perhaps you could address that as well as just sort of a basic cost of Mobile Cause.
Yeah, definitely. So Mobile Cause, the Mobile Cause platform is always being added with these great solutions. We have an incredible comprehensive solutions for events and for in-person donations, and for all your online form needs, and for texting solutions, and for mobile marketing. And so right now our entry-level plan is annual plan is $295 a month, and that includes access to all of our tools, as well as access to our team of fundraising experts. A couple of things that I wanted to point out specifically from Shelley's comment is the average crowdfunder across the board raises an average of $568 from 8 people, and on average, 5 out of those 8 people are new to your organization. So I wanted just to end on a note of one of the things that I noticed as I was combing through hundreds of successful Mobile Cause crowdfunding campaigns. One of the things that I realized was that most of the people, the majority of the people that are going to be involved in crowdfunding, believe it or not, are going to be millennials. And when I say millennials, at least this was true on what I looked at, these are people that are 35 and under. And I also noticed that the majority of them are actually women, which makes sense as women make up 75% or more of all Facebook traffic. One of my team members here walked into my office and wrote this and said, "You got to say this on a webinar," so I'm saying it, Jessica, thank you. Is in the Millennial Impact Report this year, it talks about how the actual preferred method of giving for people who are under 35 is actually crowdfunding. So keep that in mind as you're planning, and as specifically as you're going out to try to recruit volunteer fundraisers, set goals, and reach those goals. So with that, Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. I think that's a fantastic piece of insight to end with. And I would just say finally to any of those of you that did not get any of your specific questions answered, again, Mobile Cause has a fantastic team of fundraising, crowdfunding experts. Feel free to call us directly at the number on the screen, which is 888-661-8804, or visit mobilecause.com/demo, and they're happy to go through and answer really specific questions for you, so you can get your answers that you need to raise more money and get more support for your organization, and that's really what we're all about. So thank you all for joining us. Again, look out for an email from us with the link to the presentation and the recording. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. Thanks
Thank
to our
you.
terrific guests. Julia, thank you. Shelley, Tim.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
It's great to be part of it.
Thanks, Tim.
All
Have
right.
a great
Best
day,
of luck,
everyone.
everybody, fundraising.